Hi everyone, welcome back to Ria's collection. Today I am going to bake this beautiful cheesy bacon and vegetable wreath. Let's begin. So the first step is to mix some sugar, yeast and some warm milk together. So give that a good whisk and you're looking for the sugar to dissolve along with the yeast. And then we're going to set this mixture aside for about 5 to 8 minutes till it's foamy on the top. In the meantime, let's mix up a little bit of flour using a dough hook of my stand mixer. You could also do this by hand, but I'm using a machine today. And I'm going to add a little bit of oil into the flour. Now let's combine the two together, and I always like to make doughs in my machine on the slowest speed. That's looking good. The flour and oil is now mixed well. Let's take a look at the yeast mixture. Look at how foamy it is on the top. This is what we're looking for. Now back to the flour. We have a few more things to add to it to make it into a nice soft bread dough. So here I have some sugar and salt, some more milk. This is also warm milk. I'm also going to add in an egg. Oops, I think the shell fell in. Okay, let me grab that out. And lastly, the foamed milk and yeast mixture. And now I'm going to combine all of this again on the slowest speed of my stand mixer to form a smooth dough. This is going to take about a good 5 to 8 minutes because I'm using the slowest speed. So if you're going to knead it by hand, it's going to take you about 10 to 12 minutes of kneading. And as you can see, the dough is nicely clearing the sides of the bowl. And now the kneading is all done. Let's see how the dough feels like. It's very soft, and as you can see, it's sticking to my fingers slightly when I pull it away. And that's exactly what you want. You do not want a dry dough because dry dough makes dry bread. So I am going to get all of the dough out of the hook. And I'm just going to pull out a chunk of the dough to see if it has reached the window pane or if it passes the window pane test. So take a small chunk of dough and stretch it like how I'm doing. And now you can see that's formed a very thin film as you stretch and it doesn't really tear. So this is called a window pane test. And now that my dough has passed that test, I'm going to move on to the next step. I am going to apply a very little amount of oil on top of my dough. I'm going to smear it all over and coat the outside of my dough with it. This helps the dough from drying out, especially when it is kept aside for the first rise. I like to make it into a nice smooth ball and tuck that in. And now I'm going to use a tea towel to cover it, and I will set that aside for it to rise fully. Let's take a look. Ooh, that dough has risen really well. It took me about 1 hour and 15 minutes. I always like to poke a hole into the middle and see if it's going to close on itself. If it doesn't, it has risen really well. So I'm going to punch the dough down gently by folding it over and over And this is going to release all of those extra gases. This dough is a super soft and supple one. Now let me set that aside and show you what the filling ingredients are. So I have some finely sliced green onions, capsicum, and some celery. I also have some grated sharp cheddar cheese. The next ingredient is my favorite and the most delicious bacon. You could substitute this with any other meat of your choice. Then we have some melted butter, which is going to act as a glue between the dough and all of the filling ingredients. And we also have one egg, which I will be brushing on to the finished bread just before baking as an egg wash. And now I'm going to transfer that deflated dough onto my work surface, and I'm going to roll this out into a squarish rectangle or something of that shape. Just make sure you're rolling out into an even thickness, because you don't want some parts of the roll to be really thick and the other one to be thin, because when they bake out, it's going to show. So roll it out into a nice even dough. This makes a huge wreath, and I like to use my half sheet pan for baking it. So you might be surprised at how big it gets once it's baked. So if you don't have a half sheet pan which measures 12 inches by 18 inches, you can divide this into two and make two smaller wreaths to fit into your tin. Now let's brush that melted butter all over the dough. So this is going to act as a glue for all of our vegetables and cheese and meat to stick to the dough. So don't skip the step. You need it. And it also adds flavor for sure. So brush it all over the dough. And now let's get sprinkling. I really love this part. It makes it so colorful. All the different shades of green. So when you're chopping your vegetables, do a fine dice. You don't want chunky ones, because you want a bite of every vegetable in each bite of your bread. So make them small. So sprinkle it all over. Followed by the bacon. Just look at that color. If you don't want to eat bacon, you can add any other minced meat of your choice, cooked. Make sure you cook your meat before you add it to the dough. And now the cheese. The color just keeps on getting better. And now let's roll it into a log. So if you don't want to use cheddar cheese and you want to use some other cheese, go for it. It's totally up to you. This is highly customizable, so feel free to adjust as per your needs. So when you come towards the end of it, pull the dough over and pinch to close the seams. I'm just rolling and feeling the log to make sure it's of even thickness all around. And now bend it like a horseshoe and then bring the edges together. I'm just re-pinching the seams once again. Yeah, and then bring the edges together and tuck it in and then pinch it once again to form a wreath. And now I'm slowly expanding that circle because we're going to let this rise once again on that sheet. So if the circle inside is small, it's going to close up. And now using a scissor and at an angle, cut it almost to the bottom. So continue doing that. You're making small, deep cuts into the dough. And if it's coming off, just tuck everything back in. I just noticed that my cuts were not that deep on the other side, so I'm just going to make it deeper. So cut it till you can feel the sheet, but don't cut it all the way through, all right? So continue doing that. This is how it should look like once you have slashed it. And now gently pull each of those pieces out and you can fan them out like a wreath. It looks very pretty as you're doing this. And when you're fanning them out, pull them out slightly so that the center has a little more space. I'm just telling that over and over again because we're going to let this rise once again, and then when you bake it, if the circle inside is not big, it's going to close up. It'll still look pretty, it'll still taste delicious, but if you want the look of it, as you're fanning the pieces out, just pull it out towards the edges. That way the wreath gets bigger in the middle. I'm just continuing to make it look prettier and tucking everything in, especially at the seams. It's all for aesthetics, all right? I think I am almost done beautifying it now. So here it is. Looks pretty, doesn't it? So the next step is to give that an egg wash. So I am using just an egg here. So for egg wash, there are different ways of preparing it. You can just use a plain egg. Some people like to use just a yolk and some water to thin it out. Some people like to use the whole eggs along with either milk or cream. So depending on the extra medium, like a water, cream or milk, the egg wash can get darker. So I am applying just a plain whisked up egg. So the egg wash is all done. Now I'm going to set that aside for it to rise once again. So it's been about half an hour now, and look at that wreath. It's risen so beautifully, and now it's going to bake at 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. So here it is. My beautiful cheesy bacon and vegetable wreath is ready. Just look at that wreath. It's so beautiful, right? All of those colors, and it's super soft inside, and it smells amazing right now in our kitchen. I can't wait for you to taste it. This is perfect for a brunch, a birthday party, tea party, a picnic, or even as an after-school snack. Until next time.